Welcome back. So we remembered this time to turn the air conditioner off while we're talking. So apologize for that last episode with the AC on. So we're learning as we go with podcasting. And also this week I have a cold. So if I sound a little funny, that's why. But all that aside, let's jump right into our next episode, which is 5 years on the road, 4 rigs. Is there a perfect rig for full-time family travel? So on this episode, we will give you our opinion on that, along with talking through the different 4 rigs we have had, what we liked, what we didn't like, why we made the decision to purchase those ones, and kind of just give you some insight into picking the right rig for you and your family.
Yeah, the other thing I wanted to mention real quick before we got into that was we also film these podcast recordings and we put them out on our YouTube channel. So you can go out there and check it out, what we look like while we're doing this. And I'm saying that because this week we have a new table and I am actually sitting on a bench that I'm level with Brianna, so I don't look like a little short guy filming sitting next to her. So go check it out. It's on our YouTube channel. You can find that from our website or wherever. And
as part of the links we'll share in the show notes, we will share links to the walkthroughs of each of the rigs we had so that you can kind of get a better understanding of what Craig's referring to, too, about being on a bench this week, and last week he was on the couch. But Moving on. All right, so to kind of start it off, we are a family of 6, and when we did launch, we were a family of 6 with 2 big dogs. We had 2 labs at the time. Now we just have 1 with us. We did lose 1 because he had gotten older. It was sad. But at the time, we had 2 big dogs, 4 kids, and 2 adults, and Craig likes to say, and
partridge in a pear tree.
That's us. So when we started, the kids were 6, 4, 4, and 2. So when we started looking for rigs, we decided that we did want a motorhome, that we didn't want a fifth wheel or a travel trailer. And we decided that because we figured with a truck with 4 kids and 2 dogs and having that truck to drive around places when we were out exploring, once we had dropped the rig off, it just didn't quite fit. We didn't really want to go that route for a vehicle that we knew we would spend a lot of time in once we got places to explore. So we started looking at motorhomes and kind of trying to figure out what we wanted to do there. Now, if you've been on the market looking, you know finding a motorhome, actually almost any type of rig with 4 bunk beds in it, is not easy to do, especially not a motorhome.
Yeah, I think it's very limited. Typically, sleeping situations are made for at most 2 kids. I think now they're getting into 3 kids. And the only reason I think they're figuring out that 3 kids works is because in a truck, typically you have 2 seats up front and 3 seats in the back for kids. So it's not ideal for a bigger family.
Right. So we looked at a bunch of them and knew we were going to buy something used, and we're trying to just throw around ideas on what we could do. So we got creative. We decided that we would buy one and we would remodel it to make it work for our family. So we ended up finding a Newmar, which what brand or what model was it?
It's a Newmar Country Star 3910.
I believe. Okay. Yeah. We will have the link in the show notes to the walkthrough, but Craig found one of those, and this was about a month before we were supposed to, maybe 2 months before we were supposed to be launching, house going to be gone and everything. We finally found the one we think we wanted. It was down in Miami, Florida, so we couldn't go down and see it. But Craig had the guy go in and measure everything in the back of the rig. So back in the bedroom, it came with just 1 queen bed, and then it had a closet, and it had like a dresser area with the TV. And our thought was we were going to take the closet out and take the dresser out and turn both of those into bunk beds. So Craig had the guy out there measuring left and right and up and down and all around to make sure that this would work for us. And the reason that it would work was that at the time our kids were smaller, so we could do the 1 set of bunks at just 60 inches long. And there was going to be plenty of room for the kids because they were little. The problem was when the slide outs came in was that the bunks were going to bump into the queen bed. So Craig had to make it that the slide outs had a hinge on it. So we had to hinge the bottom bunks up when we brought the slide out in so it would fit, it would close. But long story short, it comes down to we have a queen bed in the back with 4 bunks, 2 at the foot of the bed in where the dresser area was and 2 in the closet. And everyone had their own bunks. The dog slept on the floor right there as well. And then we had our bed. So all of us were back in this one room. So something's beeping at us.
All right.
Okay. So it was all good. So we could all fit in that back room and sleep together back there. And it was actually a really, really good setup for us and worked really well with the ages the kids were at and everything. We were really happy with how it turned out. We had to buy mattresses for the bunks and do things like that. But it was a really good setup. Then everyone wants to know about Craig and I having our own private time at night. So.
Mm-hmm. I'll let you keep going. You're knocking it out today.
Okay. So what we would do is close the bedroom door and then we could go out in the living room when the kids were sleeping. And we had that whole living room area to use for whatever it was we wanted to do once the kids were sleeping. So we were definitely able to make that work and it was fine. And we had lots of space that we could spend time out there ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the other thing, when we first got on the road, we were a little bit nervous on safety and all of that kind of stuff. So it made us feel more comfortable and secure to all be sleeping in the same room together. That was just when we first started. Now, we're a little bit more comfortable, but that was a big thing that I think you were concerned with.
Yeah, I was definitely concerned with that. I didn't want the kids on the opposite side, like in a fifth wheel or something like that. I liked the idea of us all being in the same room. And then also I liked on travel days that we were all in the rig. So if the kids had to go to the bathroom, that was really easy. If I needed to make them a quick snack, I could get up and go do that. And a lot of those things, the motorhome really appealed to us. Mm-hmm. So the Newmar we ended up in was a 39-foot diesel pusher motorhome with 4 slide outs. It was big.
It was huge. And the cool thing about diesel pushers is that the engine is in the back. So it's at the rear of the coach. So all the stuff up front is all storage, like in the basement area of the RV, which we needed at the time because we were coming from like a 2,500 square foot house and we had a lot of stuff that we wanted to bring and we weren't quite ready to part with it. So we brought it all.
Yes.
And we had room for it. So why not? Right.
And weight too, being the diesel pusher, we weren't overweight in it. So there were a lot of reasons why that was a really, really good choice for us when we first got on the road, and we really enjoyed it. And having the 4 slide outs meant the bedroom was big enough for the setup we did. And then in the front with both of the slide outs, there were 2 couches. There was a dinette. There was just a lot of room in there. So it worked out really, really well for us to have that setup. Well, there's just 1 couch, but felt like 2. It was a big couch.
It was a big couch. Yeah. And we kind of rearranged some furniture in there, but to make it work. And then also on travel days, the kids had a big TV right across from them. So we strapped in their car seats into the seats and the seat belts in the RV, and they were able to watch movies basically the whole time.
Yeah.
That was before they had iPads, kind of, I think.
Yeah, I don't think they had their own iPads at that time.
Yeah, so it worked out. It kept them entertained. They had food on board, bathroom on board. And I could drive forever. So we did that. We knocked out big chunks of mileage because everyone was comfortable.
So it was really, really good. So we were in that for a solid year before we started to get itchy feet and started to say, wait a second, it's really good. But so the big thing that became what we wanted to make a change with was the size of it. There was definitely stress involved with finding gas stations because you couldn't really just pull into any random gas station. It was trying to find one that was big enough for us.
Well, we towed a car too. Mm-hmm. So we towed a GMC Acadia behind it, which was kind of our city vehicle once we got to a place. So overall length, the RV is almost 40 feet, plus probably another 12 feet for the car and a few feet for the hitch kind of thing. And so you're over 50 feet, 55 feet almost. So you're about as long as a semi almost. So we had to find, truck stops to gas up at and places easy to turn around. And with towing a car, you can't back up. You can't go in reverse. So it keeps you in one direction.
And that was nerve-wracking too. If we saw something cool that we weren't planning to stop at and we wanted to stop, we couldn't really say, oh, let's go check that out if we didn't know the parking situation there. So we kind of knew, like started realizing some of these limitations that we had with having a big rig like this was that we couldn't do that type of travel where we randomly stopped somewhere, or that we just went boondocking down some road that maybe we'd have to turn around and maybe we wouldn't. Like a lot of limitations around that stuff. Having the car, we could unhook the car and go drive and scope some things out if we really wanted to, but we just really started feeling like we wanted to be a little smaller for the style of travel that we wanted to do. So that got us to start thinking and looking for other options and other things that we could do. So before we go off of the Newmar, just because I know I always wonder this when people are talking about things. So the Newmar, when we bought it, was about $70,000. At the time, it was a 2006, so it was like 8 years old at the time. And we were able to get a loan on it that was like a 15-year loan. So
through Good Sam.
And so the monthly payment on it was like in $530 or something like that at the time. So it was definitely all reasonable that way too. And then we had our car, which had just a regular payment on it, just a regular 5-year loan on the car. But anyways, like to share that because I think people are curious to know the prices that kind of go into these. Because if you bought that Newmar new, it would have been in the 200,000+ range. So we knew we weren't going to do that. But Craig was definitely very happy with Newmar as a company.
Yeah, we've had several companies throughout our RV life, and that ranks up there with probably the top number one, tied for number one at least, with customer service and quality of build. For some reason, a lot of these RV companies can't give you parts or sell you parts. Like if you need it, you have to go through a dealer. But Newmar will have the part and they'll make the part if they need to, and send it directly to you. So I really like that. Because I like to do a lot of the work myself. We don't have time or, the luxury of just dropping off the RV if we have to have it fixed. So I do a lot of it on my own, and it helps to get the parts I need.
And even sometimes when there was an issue with it, you could call and actually talk to someone, and they were super helpful to talk through what the problem was and try to help Craig figure out how to troubleshoot it on his own.
Yeah, they would be on the phone with me for, half an hour just kind of diagnosing something. So.
You didn't have to be on hold for a long time or jump through hoops to find him. It was easy to find him. So there was lots of positives with that, and I think we just thought everyone was like that, and we learned that's not quite the case. But anyways, moving on. So that was rig number one from us with being on the road with the Newmar. Definite right decision when we started. Would not change that at all, and there are definitely still times that we miss it. So should we have switched all these other ones? Let's just say yes, we're glad we did. No regrets. Okay.
That air ride, though.
That air ride, that was nice.
That was like,
I could put my feet up in the passenger seat when we were driving. Oh, I missed that. Lots of those things we didn't realize we were going to miss until we weren't in it, and then we were like, oh, that's right. This one. And even just the quality of the cabinets in it and all the parts to it. So anyways, Newmar was good. We like it. Yep. Maybe going back that way at some point. Rig number two, when we decided we did want to downsize, and we also have a post on our site about all the reasons why we wanted to downsize, so we will link to that in the show notes as well. But the biggest reason was just more flexibility with traveling, with campgrounds we could get into, also with being able to just pull off and stop if we wanted to. If we wanted to stop and get Chipotle for lunch, that we could easily find somewhere to park close by and do that pretty easily, not the same as when you have this gigantic thing that you're driving. So we opted for a Winnebago View. It was a 2006 Winnebago View, 23 feet long. So it was a tiny little Class C, almost a B, I would say, but it was a Class C. A really tiny one that we had it set up that in the back there was a bed that we were going to have two kids sleep in, and then in the front over the cab, Craig and I were going to sleep in. And then there was the dinette table, but we actually ended up building another bunk in the back to go over the other one so the kids could be two in the top, two in the bottom, and then Craig and I up in the cab area. And we will put a link in the show notes to the walkthrough video of that. Don't judge on that video. We took that video.
We got roasted on it.
We did, but we took that video right when we moved into it, so it's a little bit of it's not a pretty Instagram shot video. It's kind of like the reality of what it looked like with 6 people and 2 big dogs in this tiny rig.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I liked it for the maneuverability. It fit into a regular parking spot. Like, it would hang over the back a little bit, but width-wise, it fit into a spot. So we could go anywhere in it. And for a while, we used that without a car. We did a full Canada trip without a car, so that meant we had to go to the grocery store in it. We had to do pretty much everything in the rig. So that worked out pretty good. I mean, for that travel, if you don't need a car for a while, it worked out.
We enjoyed it for that part of it too, but I think for long-term travel, that would have been really rough to do. So we enjoyed it for what it was because it gave us what we were looking for at the time, but we didn't stay in it long for a couple reasons. One, not being able to tow a car, which we thought we'd be able to, was one of them. But the other one was that, so ironically, one of the other reasons we wanted to sell the Newmar was as it was getting older, we were worried if there was a big issue that came up with the Newmar, that replacing parts in it or with the engine was going to cost us maybe $10,000 or something to fix. And at the time, we just didn't have $10,000 sitting in the bank. We were still in the beginnings of our businesses and we're not feeling comfortable with that. So that was one of the reasons we left the Newmar. We got into this View thinking we'd be good to go because supposedly these engines are like awesome.
Bulletproof, they say.
Yeah, the best of the best. And Craig did the research. He checked it out before we bought it and everything. But lo and behold, after being in it for not even a year, I think we put over $10,000 into fixing all the things that went wrong with it.
Yeah, we blew the transmission like 2 months after buying it, I think. So that kind of started everything, and then we had to do a drive shaft and fuel tank and like all these other things. And it wasn't like it was with the RV part of it. It was all mechanical, so it was expensive and it seemed like never ending.
It was also hard to find places we could take it because it was a Mercedes engine, so you could only take it to specific dealers to get work done, and that got complicated to try to find those. So there were just a lot of issues that came up with it. So we decided that as much as we did enjoy it for what it was and the size of it and the mobility, that we just needed to move on to something else. So
yeah, we couldn't trust it.
We felt uncomfortable. And I do feel after we put all that money into it, because we made sure we fixed everything before we traded it in. And I think we traded in and someone got a really good rig.
Someone got a brand new rig, basically.
So we probably should have kept it just to at least get some of that, but we were just over it at that point. Yeah. But we knew we still wanted to stay small because we did really enjoy being small and the mobility that gave us. But after going through this with having an older rig, we really wanted something new. We were like, forget this. We want something new. So we did kind of a whole switch around and ended up purchasing a 12-passenger Chevy van that we used to tow a 21-foot Micro Mini travel trailer.
Mm-hmm. And the Micro Mini, it is micro. Like it was short at 21 feet, but it was also 7 feet wide compared to normal trailers are 8 feet wide. And it was like one of those ultralight ones. So empty. I think it weighed about 3,200 pounds, and fully stocked, like it could go up to over 7,000. So like we had plenty of weight to play with, which was another thing that we wanted to look for, because on the Winnebago View, we were really tight on the amount of cargo we could take with us because it didn't have the weight capacity.
And that's a good point to make, because that was something we didn't consider going into the Class C, that also included us in there. And as a family with 2 big dogs, we weighed well over 700 pounds, and all the capacity that you could put in there was like 1,200 pounds. Mm-hmm. So that didn't give us much room for groceries, water, all of our stuff. So that was definitely a big, big miss on our part that we should have thought about and considered. So don't forget about the weight component. Mm-hmm. That's very important. Even in a trailer or in a motorhome or Class C or anything, like take all of that into account.
Yeah, and we thought that was part of the issues of having all those mechanical problems was just too much weight. And they did tell me at one of the Mercedes dealers that with that RV on that particular engine and chassis, it's almost maxed out at what it can do without anything else in it. And then all of our stuff and us and everything else in it was put it over the limit, I think. So.
Yeah, so that was kind of a duh on our part to not know that and pay attention to that and know that that was an important thing for us to be aware of. So definitely something that you want to know and consider and be on top of when you are looking for what you're going to get.
Yep, for sure. There's yellow stickers on all the RVs, either on the door or on like this front side of the trailers. So pay attention to that and follow it.
And I would say that we've come to the conclusion that as our family, if we want the capacity that we want to be able to put into what we have, needs to be about 2,500 pounds.
Yeah, 25 is kind of our limit.
And that would be without us. That's not counting us being in the vehicle. That's more counting like just our things. We thought 2,500 pounds to 3,000 would be where we'd feel good. Would you agree with that?
I'd agree with that. Yeah. I think that's right about where we figured we need.
Yeah. So just something to keep in mind. That's us with 6 people and a dog and all of our stuff. And we are somewhat minimalist, not to the extreme, but we don't have a ton of things, but we have a decent amount. So I would say that probably lands right in the middle with what you could be looking for. So anyways, we moved on to the Micro Mini. So we traded in our Winnebago View and lost a bunch of money on it and are still paying some of it off, is what it is, and traded that in for a brand new 2019 Micro Mini. And we had the Chevy van, which was a 2017 Chevy 3500 Express 6-liter van.
Yeah, so it's a big beast of a van.
Yep, so that had no problem at all. It can tow up to 9,500 pounds?
Yeah, 9,600 pounds it can tow. It can be 9,200 pounds itself. And then combined, which means the weight of the van plus the weight of whatever it's towing, can be 16,000. So with the Micro Mini, we were way under.
And that's
good to go.
16,000 includes us in it, too.
Everything, yep.
Yeah.
Everything. Okay. Fuel, water, groceries, dogs, kids.
The whole deal.
Partridge in a pear tree, everything.
So it was actually a really, really good setup for us weight-wise. We could fit everything in, tow it, do all of it well under the weight. That was not an issue for us. Craig felt very comfortable driving it. We could get into pretty much any gas station. We could get into parking lots. Like, did not have a lot of problems with it for that reason at all.
Yeah, I mean, it was small.
It was small. Yeah. And we'll have a link to the walkthrough for that one as well. So for a family of 6 with the dog, at this time we just have our one dog. It was definitely a tight fit, but we made that work too and felt very comfortable in it for a while.
Yeah, we did. But when we went to the Winnebago View, we made the decision to live outside, basically. So we'd be inside for maybe cooking and going to the bathroom and sleeping. And then basically when daylight came, we were outside, sitting out at the picnic table or our chairs or whatever. Kids were playing outside. So we didn't spend much time inside.
No.
Where in the Newmar, we did. Like, we spent a lot. Like, we could have spent days in there without ever leaving. And it was more like an apartment.
Right. And that was part of the reason we wanted to downsize, too, was that we wanted to have ourselves get more outside and just spend more time outside and have that be part of, like, what we're doing. So that was the reason we went to the Micro Mini and the Winnebago as well. So at this point, we're in the Micro Mini, towing it with our van. And where's the first place we go but Baja, Mexico?
Yeah.
So we took a brand new trailer down to Baja, Mexico. And actually, the setup we had was perfect for Baja because the trailer itself is a lot skinnier, so it was good on the roads there. We saw people down there with massive fifth wheels and big old Class A's and whatever, but for us, this was a great setup to have down in Baja, and we really enjoyed it for that reason. We also were able to figure out a lot of the things that we wanted to do inside of it to kind of customize it to work for us. So that was really nice, too, that we were able to really make it work for us. And you'll see in the video, the walkthrough that we have and the blog post we have on it, that there's just a lot of reasons why this worked out really well for us and why we would definitely recommend it for a family that is looking to have something a little bit smaller to be able to easily get around places and kind of have that style of travel. We also only stayed in places for maybe a few days, like 3, 4, or 5 days, maybe a week or 2 at a time, but we were moving quite a bit with it. So it was also nice for that reason too, that it was kind of easy to move around with it.
Yeah, it was. It was easy to park, to back in and all that stuff. Because that was the first time that I've really towed anything too. And like, it was true. Like, you couldn't even feel it behind you on the highway, and backing it in was pretty easy. It could fit into a lot of places. So
So that checked a lot of boxes for us. The ease of driving, Craig wasn't as stressed driving this. The amount of the weight issue was no longer there, which we knew we didn't want to have to deal with after the View. Mm-hmm. There were a lot of things that really checked a lot of boxes. The only thing about it was just it was really small.
Yeah.
So after we hit about a year of being in this one, we kind of figured out that it was, well, I should say, I think me and Knox and Malia and Cannon were pretty much okay with it. Indy was okay with it, our dog, for the most part. But for Craig and Carson, our oldest, they hit a point that it was kind of like, nope, we want and need more space. Let's move on to something else. So we decided that we were going to just do what we thought would be just a quick upgrade from the 21-foot trailer to a 30-foot trailer. And Craig had found one that is called a Baja edition, which means it has bigger tires, so it's better for boondocking reasons. So it meant that we could just take it and go boondocking, which was one of the things with the Micro Mini being so low to the ground that we found was a little bit of a hindrance when we wanted to do some boondocking. We still did, but it was a little lower to the ground, so that made that a little bit harder. Or with the Jayco now, with these big Baja tires, we felt that it was going to be much easier to do some off-roading stuff and things like that. Mm-hmm. So we decided to move from the Winnebago to the Jayco. Now, with the Micro Mini, we had been paying double on our loans on the trailer. So when it came time to trade it in, we didn't quite break even, but we got closer. So we weren't necessarily losing money on it. So it wasn't horrible. But if you're someone who really wants to stay really good with your finances, I don't know if you would have made that switch the way we did, but we kind of went with it.
Yeah, and our mistake was all these loans are kind of rolling forward from the first one. So we hadn't built up enough equity to kind of do it and get back.
Yeah. So you either need to put a lot of money down when you start or just not care like us and kind of be like, it is what it is, mm-hmm. and that's just what's going to happen and whatever.
Yeah, and the other issue with full time is that you can't really sell it yourself. You know, like it'd be very difficult to sell it to another private party where I'd get more for it, but then I'd have to coordinate that with buying a new one, so we aren't totally homeless for a period of time. So trading it in has kind of been our go-to just because it's easier to do.
And we tend to just want to pick the easier thing with managing two businesses and with the 4 kids and the dog and the traveling and all of that type of stuff. Like, we just always decide, like, it's just easier. Let's just do that. And we take the hit financially, and it is what it is.
Yep.
So we moved into the Jayco 30-foot travel trailer. It's been working out okay for us, but we also didn't quite realize that Winnebago's quality was definitely better than Jayco. Mm-hmm. So the cabinets and just a lot of the functioning things like that in the Micro Mini were definitely higher than what we're getting in the Jayco right now. Yeah. So that's something that we've noticed. But other than that, like the space we're in now with the 30-foot, we feel really comfortable in as a family. Mm-hmm. Like, we basically feel like the only next thing to truly be comfortable would be a gigantic fifth wheel, which doesn't make sense for us. And I even feel with that, we wouldn't get all of our boxes checked. So for now, in something this size, we feel it definitely is working for us. The thing we would want to do next would be moving actually back to a Class A, which would probably end up being something like we had started with, like with the Newmar, like something in that about 39-foot size, maybe a little bigger than that, and maybe doing some more customizations in it to get us back into a Class A, just because for that, we're kind of hitting a point where we want more space and more comfort. And so we're kind of finding like our travel style will probably change to where that will make more sense. But for now, we're going to stay in the 30-foot travel trailer for the next year. And we are going to actually go from the van to a truck. So we are looking right now to get a 3500 truck that we can use to tow it, that has 3 seats in the front with the middle one having the shoulder belt. So 1 kid will be up there with us, 3 in the back, and then we figure Indy will sit by someone's feet. And we're just going to give the truck and that setup a go and see how that goes for us for the next year. Mm-hmm. Our plan is to hit Alaska and then hit Baja again. So we figured this setup was really good for that, a little bit more rugged. Once we're done with that, next year, once we come back from Baja, we figured then we'll kind of reevaluate, maybe see if we're still thinking we want to do a Class A or what we're going to do with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would just add to that. The reason we're looking at a truck is moving to the Jayco 30-foot it's putting us right on the edge of the van's limit. So with the Micro Mini, there was no problem. This one, it's too close for my comfort. So we're going to go to something that can tow more, has more capacity in that, and then also four-wheel drive, a diesel, so we can get some better gas mileage and have a little more oomph going over the mountains that we like to go visit. And just have a little bit more, something built to tow. The van was kind of built as a passenger vehicle, and we're gonna really upgrade that to the truck.
Craig wants to have more power.
Yeah.
We'd also say, though, with the trailer, we are probably overweight in the trailer. Or probably, if I just should say we are. So
no, allegedly. Don't say anything. Don't admit to anything.
So we keep trying to downsize and get to less in here so that we are riding that line a little bit better. But the reality of it is that they do not make these things with enough weight for families that are going to be living in them full time. So we just brought like 10 bags of stuff to Goodwill to donate. We keep going through, keep trying to get things down lower, but that is definitely something that's hard to manage and to figure out. So we are still working through that. But again, as you're out looking for something, just keep that in mind. Even those big fifth wheels, they do not have enough weight in there for families that are going to be traveling in them full time.
They don't even have enough capacity to fill all of the cabinets and stuff that they put in those, and that's pretty minimal. Like, they don't have a lot of storage spots, but if you fill all of those, you're definitely overweight. So
and that's not even counting putting water in.
No, water's heavy. So yeah, that's a big thing. Yeah, it's strange. I don't know.
Yeah, it does not make sense. So that's something, though, for you to definitely be aware of when you're looking. And when we talk about finding the perfect rig for full-time family travel, the answer we've come up with is there is not a perfect rig for full-time family travel.
We're trying to find it.
It's not out there, is I think the conclusion we've come to. We keep trying different things, but we do feel there's some factors that come into play. It's your style of travel. If you're going to be going to one place and staying there for 3 weeks at a time every time you move, then yeah, a big, humongous fifth wheel may make a lot of sense. Just know that the weight is still an issue, so maybe a toy hauler for that reason, because usually in the toy haulers you can put more weight in, make more sense. But then when we look at toy haulers, we don't like the living space because we feel like the living space is so tiny and we want a big living space. So there's all these different factors that come into play. If you're going to be traveling a lot and moving a lot, I think something like a Class C or a Class A makes a lot of sense because it's easier to park, it's easier to maneuver, you can get in and out of places and spots a lot easier. Obviously, the smaller you can go, the better. I would say probably the 30-foot with that would be a really good length to stay at if you can. But then obviously you take some of the space away that you get from a fifth wheel or a trailer. And then I would say our setup we had with that Micro Mini in the van was so great for doing the Baja trip we did and just being in a location. I think for 8 months it didn't rain because we went down to Baja and up the Pacific coast, and it was great. Like, it was a really good setup for that, but it was really, really small and tight, which would be hard for people if someone has a job where they need an office workspace to be at for 8 hours a day uninterrupted. That just wasn't going to happen in that space, and I knew that going into it. So I sat and worked in the van sometimes. I went places to work, sat in the bed, kind of figured it out and made it work. But all that being said, I don't think there is a perfect fit. But also don't be fooled by when you walk into one of those gorgeous big ones and think it has everything you're looking for. I would just caution you to really think through your style of travel and how you're thinking you want to travel and what the priorities are around having a workspace or not. The kids needing their own bed, I don't think is as important as we used to think it was. They don't spend much time in there. I know for us, a big important thing was having a big living area that we could all hang out at the table, at the couch, watch TV with the kitchen, and have enough room to kind of all hang out in this area. And that was really important to us. And I am glad that we now have that space so we can spend some downtime in here.
Yeah, and for me, it was having enough room on the countertop to cook and kind of have a place for things to go when mealtime comes around. This one definitely has it more than the Micro Mini did and the Winnebago View. Not as much, obviously, as the Newmar, but this one works out. It works out good enough for me, so I'm happy in it. And yeah, I think the living space that we have definitely works out because the kids can kind of have a place to play either on the couch or even a little bit on the floor, and I can still maneuver around them, and I'm not having to jump over anybody to get, back to the bathroom or like up front to the bed or whatever. So.
And I think towing the 30-foot, I think a 30-foot is still a good length. I will say with the 21-foot micro mini, it was so great in campgrounds because it was so easy to find a spot. When everything was booked, they could still find a spot for us because we were so small. With the 30-foot, with it being a trailer with the tow vehicle, we're getting a little bit bigger again, but still 30 feet is much easier for them to find a spot for than it is for 40 feet or 40 plus feet.
Mm-hmm.
So I do like the idea that we're still in something that's not humongous. And I think we've just come to the conclusion to get everything we'd want, we just have to get back in the house. So we're choosing not to be back in the house and have the gigantic like farm table that I want, or to have a huge bathroom, or to have tons of counter space so that we can still stay in something that we're comfortable traveling with and still get out and travel a lot. And someday maybe we'll have that house. But for now, this is what's working for us.
Yes, it is.
Have anything else to add to that?
Nope, I don't.
All right. So as a wrap on that, for the answer, is there a perfect rig to have? I would say the answer is no, there is not. Just list your priorities out and be very realistic with what those priorities are, and just pick a few and focus on those and know you're not going to get everything you're looking for.
Yeah, do your research. Go look at some, get a feel for it. And then after that, look at the numbers, like the weights, tow capacities, cargo capacities, all that kind of stuff. There are apps out there that you can use to calculate that stuff, so you don't have to do it on your own. There's good online resources to figure out what the heck it is, because there's so many different numbers for weight and all that stuff. So go look at that, or send me a message or something. I can try to help you out, because it's confusing.
It is. It definitely is. So in the show notes, we will have links to all 4 of these rigs and the walkthroughs of them, so you can see what our setups were and are, and kind of what we did to those to make them all our own, because we definitely did some customization in all of them. All right, so that is a wrap on this episode. Hopefully you found this helpful and not more confusing. So next week, we are going to kick off what we're going to call Series 1. And what that is going to be is 1 year on the road and our insights at that time. So we're actually going to go way back to almost 5 years ago. We have written some posts on that where we will talk through what those feelings were like after spending 1 year on the road, and share with you where our heads were at that time.
All right, sounds
fun.
That will
be next week. All right, thanks for joining us. Do all the stuff you're supposed to do on podcasts. Comment, rate, like, subscribe. I don't know.
Yep, all of it.
All that fun stuff. All right, we'll talk to you guys next week. Bye.